Okay, we're back. So meeting adjourned. Oh, sorry, meeting brought back to order. I'm very sorry about that. Meeting brought back to order at 6:45. We have a quick change of secretary since Julia had to leave, so please say hello to Alana, our new secretary, for the time being. So thank you very much for coming back, everybody. We're going to start back up with the motion, which I'm going to reread once more. The motion is number 4 on our agenda, so please bear with me for a moment. The WPIRG referendum motion proposed by Sasha Forstner, whereas every full-time undergraduate student currently pays a refundable fee of $4.75 per academic term to the Waterloo Public Interest Research Group, WPIRG, a not-for-profit corporation, and whereas this fee was initiated by the Federation of Students, and whereas WPIRG has very low levels of on-campus student involvement and oversight, thereby lowering their standards for accountability, and whereas WPIRG has not publicly released an annual report since the 2010-2011 year and currently makes no annual reports available on their website. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Federation of Students shall hold a referendum of the membership for the purposes of determining whether or not students should continue to be assessed the WPIRG fee. Be it further resolved that such a referendum shall take place prior to the March General Meeting of the Federation of Students, and be it further resolved that Students' Council shall be expressly empowered to determine the specific wording and date of the referendum within the framework of the requirements set out in this resolution. Cool. Okay, so we will now jump back to the for side. This is for the actual motion on for the resolved statements in this motion. So, Member McGuinness, again, to clarify for the audience, we have 10 minutes, sorry, point of order? That's not a point of order. Oh, pardon me, it is. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay, we're going to go again over to the for side since we just last heard from the against side. Again, this is for the be it resolved statements listed on item number 4 of the agenda. So we have Member McGuinness speaking, maximum 10 minutes allotted for this period. This also includes questions. Member McGuinness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just coming from the non-existent neutral line, and I would like to make a motion to restrict speaking turns to 3 minutes because there is a large number of members that would like to speak, and I think we would like to maintain timeliness for this meeting. So that's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to cut speaking turns to 3 minutes apiece. So can I have a seconder for this motion, just because I see you, Siddhartha? Can you please come spell your name to Alana, our secretary? Thank you. Okay, so is there any debate on this motion? Just put up your placard if you have something to say about it. Seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of restricting speaking turns to 3 minutes apiece, please raise your placards. Please lower your placards. All those opposed, please raise your placards. Brilliant. The motion passes unanimously. Okay. So we will have hearing once more from the against side. 3 minutes. This includes questions. Take it away.
Hi, I'd like to make a motion to amend this motion. The motion currently states that the WPIRG fee was initiated by the Federation of Students. This is actually not true. I have in front of me a letter from the Federation president from 1973 in which he states that the Federation approves the funding of the WPIRG fee and is in support of it, but that the fee was actually initiated through a petition which was facilitated by WPIRG and included signatures from 35% of the university student population, and the fee was approved by the Board of Governors with the support of the Federation of Students, but not initiated by the Federation of Students. I would also like to amend the last, with regards to that, I would like to amend the last point in the motion, which states that the referendum wording should be expressly controlled by the Students' Council, because the Federation of Students actually does not control the WPIRG fee, as WPIRG is a separate legal entity, and so the referendum wording should not be controlled by the Federation of Students. I would like to amend the motion to state that the referendum wording should be controlled by a student committee made up of WPIRG members as well as representation from WPIRG, not Student Council.
Point of order. So the point of order right now is that feds actually administered the FIFA referendum. Again, it's a point of order, so it can't work that way.
The Federation. The WPERG fee is administered through the university, and the WPERG referendum is initiated by WPERG has a separate bylaws to initiate WPERG referendums, as it is a separate legal entity. The referendums initiated through the Federation of Students are specifically regarding federation issues.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we have from the, oh, I suppose you do have time for questions if you want, like 10 seconds.
Yep. I'm saying that if a referendum were to happen, that the Federation shouldn't control the complete wording of the referendum because the Federation doesn't control WPERG.
4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Okay, switching now to the for side. Again, 3 minutes. Oh, pardon me, sorry. To address this, for a motion itself, because of this is called the main motion right now, we will actually not be bringing forward the amendment as of yet. The speakers list must be exhausted, and then we will return to your motion.
So with a complex motion like this, there's a two-stage amendment process. First, any amendments to the resolving words, which are the be it resolved that lines that have actual effect, those are amended. And then once all amendments to those are settled, then amendments to the preamble can be entertained because the content of the motion may change what should be expressed in the preamble.
Sorry, do you mind if you repeat your motion to our secretaries, and then we can write it on the board? Sorry, guys, this is just the era we live in. Well, this is exciting. We're sorry this is taking so long. Okay, we have stuff on the screen. This is good. Let me read out the motion and then. Okay. Okay, so right now what we're actually talking about is the italicized text, which is to replace the struck out text. The italicized text reads as follows. Order. Resolve that the date and wording shall be determined by a committee of the student members of WPERG. So do we have a seconder for this motion? Please raise your placard. We have a seconder. Okay, so we will now entertain debate on this motion. So we shall have the for side over here, and then the against side over here. This is debate specific on the amendment. And if you're already up here, please step back. So if you're speaking for this motion, for this amendment, please step over here. If you're speaking against the motion, to amend the motion, please step over here. Okay, so we're going to order, please, order. Okay, so we're going to start with the person that originally presented the motion, the member that originally presented the motion, and then switch backwards and forward. Sorry, please say your name for the record.
My name's Filza. Hi. Sorry for the confusion, everyone. Just to clarify, not all so the Federation represents full-time and part-time undergraduate students at the university, but only full-time undergraduate students pay the WPERG fee. So the Federation actually has a larger student base, and student council actually represents non-members of WPERG. So student council determining the wording of the referendum does not accurately represent WPERG. So my amendment is to have a committee of student members of WPERG, so that's anyone who has paid the WPERG fee in their tuition create the wording of the referendum. I'll take questions now.
Okay, seeing no questions. Oh, we have one question from the floor. Any other questions from the floor?
Well, there's a referendum committee for any referendum anyways, but it's made up of student council, so I'm just changing that to say that it should be made up of student members. I don't, it's a more complicated process, yes, I understand, but student council doesn't represent WPERG, so it doesn't make any sense to have student council create the WPERG to create the wording of this referendum.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes.
Are you saying that you're going to use students' councils? Oh, okay. Are you saying that you're going to use students' council's referendum committee, but just ensure that students that pay the WPERG fee, as in members of WPERG, can sit on this committee?
No, because the job of students' council is to represent students. So it's not, they're not representing WPERG. Do you understand? Oh, okay. Can I?
Any other questions on the floor? Again, please address questions towards me.
So I think the concern was, how is the committee going to be formed? How is the committee going to be formed?
through an application process. I'm not sure how the referendum committee is formed through student council. I understand that it's a complicated process. I just don't see how a student council that represents non-members of WPERG should be able to determine the wording of a referendum that directly affects WPERG.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Sorry.
Just if WPERG forms the committee, how will it be ensured that there's no bias towards WPERG?
So I'm not saying WPERG should form the committee. WPERG members are any full-time undergraduate students who have paid the 475 fee. So that's not WPERG's committee.
Any other speakers who would like to? You had your placard first.
So question for you. Why does it matter who writes up the referendum? Because you are saying that people who are members of WPERG are not necessarily members of student council. There may be non-student members who are members of WPERG, but they don't get to vote in the referendum anyways. So I don't understand why it matters, assuming that this is a neutral body. Can you please explain why it matters?
Well, it matters because they're deciding on the wording of a referendum that will affect WPERG's funding, but they're not members of the organization.
Okay, are there any other questions?
If there is an application process to be on this committee, who will be choosing the students that sit on it?
The Federation of Students in combination with WPERG.
Are there any other questions?
Sorry to be so tedious. Anyway, what is the grand sum total of funding that we're talking about? Your total budget is $333,000. So what percentage of that are we actually talking about, yay or nay, today?
That's actually out of order. Sorry, because it's actually not related to the motion at hand. Pardon me. Is there any other questions? Seeing none, do you have any closing comments? Thank you. Okay. We will be moving to the against side. Member McGuinness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to speak against this motion for two primary reasons. The first being that by law, the Federation of Students must be the full administrator of a student fee or any changes to a student fee, ancillary fee, for it to take effect. So we have to be following our own processes for it to be a properly, what's the right word? Well, for it to be considered a properly done referendum, it has to be properly administered by the Federation of Students, and this would be against our procedure. And just to clear the floor, the procedures are there is a yes and a no committee formed under the Federation of Students, and both committees must come to agreement on the date and time and wording of the referenda question. So there's a guarantee that, I know the concerns of this is that WPERG will not be able to ensure that the question is properly represented, but I suspect that they would form most of the no committee and have a fair chance at the table to ensure the question is well formed. And again, I just want to reiterate that if we aren't following our procedures properly and the referendum goes forward, someone could challenge us in court that the referendum was not properly done and is thus invalid in its results. So I would strongly speak against this, and at this time I'd like to make a motion to call the question.
So we have a motion to call the question. What this means is that it takes a 2/3 vote to pass, and then after that, we will then move towards voting on this motion. So we need a seconder for this motion, seconded by Member Birnbaum. Okay, so let's put it to a vote. All those in favor of calling the question, please put up your placards. On the amendment, pardon me. Please put up your placards. No, this is on the amendment. Order, 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 order. Okay, point of order. What we're doing right now is we're calling the question, we're calling the question on the italicized motion, which states. Okay. Resolved that the date and wording shall be determined by a committee of student members of WPERG. So this was motioned by Member McGinnis and seconded by Member Birnbaum. What this means is that voting for this means that we will bring to a vote. Voting for this, and if this passes, means we'll bring to a vote to stop discussion on this item, and otherwise vote against this means we will continue discussion. So by raising your placard, you are voting for ending discussion on this amendment. So all those in favor of calling the question, please raise your placards. All those opposed, please raise your placards. Wow, that was unanimous. Fantastic. So the question has been called, and we are now going to put this be it resolved statement to a vote that I have previously mentioned. All of those in favor of adopting the be it resolved statement that the date and wording shall be determined by a committee of student members of WPERG, please raise your placards. This is for the motion. Okay. Scrutineers, may we please have calculations for this? Please keep your placards high for our scrutineers. Please keep your placards up so we can count. Order. Please keep your placards raised. Side of the room. So we have a number of 82 bets. Okay. Do this side, yeah. Again, we're doing this to ensure accuracy, so please keep your placards up just for a little bit longer. Thank you. Okay, you can lower your placards. Thank you. Okay, all those against, please raise your placards. Oh, okay. In that case, then the motion passes. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you very much, scrutineers. Oh, sorry. Order, order, order. Order, order. Okay. The rule on this point of order? Okay. Order. Okay. Can you please clarify your point of order first?
Okay, I am repeating my point of order. Can everyone hear me? Okay, so the point of order is that this amendment is unfriendly to the main motion. The reason is because it effectively nullifies the main motion by opening up a referendum to legal action, which essentially means that the referendum will be illegitimate in any case if administered by WPIRG and is therefore null and void.
Sorry, we're just getting a rule on this point of order. Okay, so if everyone could please return to their seats if they're not on the speakers list. Thank you. Please return to your seats if you're not on the speakers list. Okay, so to your point of order, member in the black jacket. Member Hashman, thank you. We're going to, I rule that as not well taken, as the point of order should have been raised beforehand with the motion that just passed, and it's too late, so. There's now an appeal of the ruling, so what we do now, do we have a seconder for the appeal? Seconded by member McIntosh. Okay. This is now a debatable appeal, so if somebody has a... Okay, so if you are for this appeal, for this appeal, please stand over here. If you're against this appeal, please stand over here. So we have a point of order to actually explain what an appeal is. So what this means is that, order, what this means is that a member of this body has ruled that my ruling is not correct, and therefore it can be appealed. So I get first speaking turn on this. Again, just to repeat my point, according to our procedures that we're using for this meeting, the point of order is not well taken, as it should have been raised. Order. It should have been raised beforehand, before the actual motion passed before. Now on to Member Hashman for, I'm assuming, for side.
So the objection, or sorry, the ruling was that because I did not raise this objection before we voted on the amendment, it is therefore out of order. I counter to that with the evidence provided that caused me to come to this conclusion was immediately followed up by a vote to call the question, which made it impossible because of the voting process that was initiated for me to call the point of order during the vote. Therefore, I called it immediately after the first opportunity that I had to call the point of order.
Okay, we have the against side. Member Birnbaum.
I would speak against this appeal for a few reasons. I think it's very obvious that those who support WPIRG have the majority and this entire motion will fail. So I think the amendment was a waste of time. I think this appeal is a waste of time. And I think... See, you're cheering, but I'm speaking out...
Order.
You're cheering, but I'm speaking out against you a little bit. With that, I'd like to call the question on this question, all previous questions, and the preamble.
Okay, so we need a second for this motion. Do we have a seconder? Member Gafour. So if this motion is adopted, we will immediately vote on absolutely everything. And so what that means is, so putting up your placard for this motion means that you are voting for voting on everything. And if you put up your placard for against, you are not in favor and would like to continue with the motion to appeal. Is this a point of order? Yes. By voting on everything, we are referring to the fact that the whereas statement from for the WPIRG motion to the be it resolved. So we're putting this calling to the question to a vote. So all those in favor of calling the question, please raise your placards. Please put down your placards. All those opposed. Okay, so we will now be voting on the main motion, on the appeal, pardon me. So voting on the appeal first. All those in favor of the... I'm sorry, one second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so to repeat again, the decision of the chair, which is me, is that the point of order was not well taken. What this means is, well, shall the ruling of the chair be sustained? What this means is voting for this motion means that the ruling of the chair, which is me, will be sustained, and voting against this means that the ruling of the chair will not be sustained. So, putting this to a vote. All those in favor of ruling the chair to sustain the motion, please raise your placards. Okay, sorry, it looks as though there's some confusion. If someone could make a point of order as to why they're confused. Okay, so let's explain this one more time. So, the point, we'll have our parliamentarian Sean do this.
Okay, so the Assembly voted to include the amendment above, and then there was a point of order made that this amendment was out of order. The chair ruled that that point of order was not well taken, and that decision was appealed. The question is on whether or not the decision of the chair will be sustained. So a decision in favor of the chair's ruling is a decision that the motion is in order, and a vote against is to overturn that and rule that the motion was not in order.
Thank you very much. That does not, wow. Okay, so we're going to try this one more time. So putting this to a vote, I can't figure out how to put it more simply. Putting this to a vote, all those in favor of the chair, my ruling, please raise your placards. Aye. Please raise your placards high. Order, order. All those, okay, please keep your placards up high so that our scrutineers can count. Scrutineers, once you have a number, please come up to the front. Okay, can you please lower your placards? Thank you. All those against? Okay, thank you very much. The ruling of the chair has been sustained, which means we will now be voting back on the main motion. So, going back to the main motion, would someone like me to repeat the main motion as shown on the screen? The main motion is as follows. Whereas every full-time undergraduate student currently pays a refundable fee of $4.75 per academic term to the Waterloo Public Interest Research Group, WPIRG, a not-for-profit organized or corporation, and whereas this fee was initiated by the Federation of Students, and whereas WPIRG has very low levels of on-campus student involvement and oversight, thereby lowering their standards for accountability, and whereas WPIRG has not publicly released an annual report since 2010-2011 year and currently makes no annual reports available on their website now. Therefore, be it resolved that the Federation of Students shall hold a referendum of the membership for the purposes of determining whether or not students should continue to be assessed the WPIRG fee. Be it further resolved that such a referendum shall take place prior to the March General Meeting of the Federation of Students, and be it further resolved that the date and wording shall be determined by a committee of the student members of WPIRG. Those voting in favor of the motion, please raise your placards. Please raise your placards high. This is voting in favor for this motion that I just read. Thank you. All those opposed to this motion. The motion is defeated. Okay. Next. Oh, we have a point of order. Sorry, do you have a point of order? No? Okay. Okay, we're moving on to item number 5. Actually, pardon me, I think that we should announce the results for the Board of Directors first.
I will run through the numbers on each ballot, and then I will simply say the 7th ballot. I will not announce the result. And I will give it to you, and you can announce the result, which is the Danielle, Maz, and Lisa. All right, I have the teller's report for the Board of Directors election. Quiet, please. There were 3 ballots which had Danielle, Maz, and Ryan checked, but there was no indication of order. 2 which had Chris, Maz, and Stefan checked. 1 which had Cassandra, Maz, and Ryan checked. 2 which had Danielle, Mary, and Lisa checked. And all of these ballots were rejected because they did not express a preference. There was 1 vote for Kitten Kitty and abstain. It was rejected as, to the best of my knowledge, there is no student named Kitten Kitty. There were also 3 ballots cast by the same person, and those ballots were rejected. So, on the first ballot, Danielle had 79 votes, Maz had 138, Stefan had 22, Benjamin had 20, Ryan had 37, Lisa had 35, Elizabeth Bate had 13, Chris had 13, Cassandra had 12, Elizabeth McFall had 24, and Mary had 7. On ballot number 2, Danielle had 80, Maz had 138, Stefan had 23, Benjamin had 20, Ryan had 37, Lisa had 38, Elizabeth Bate had 14, Chris had 13, Cassandra had 12, and Elizabeth McFall had 24. Cassandra was eliminated. On the next ballot, Danielle had 81, Maz had 141, Stefan had 23, Benjamin still had 20, Ryan had 42, Lisa had 39, Elizabeth Bate and Chris both had 14, and Elizabeth Fall still had 24. Elizabeth Bate and Chris were eliminated. Round 4, Danielle had 84, Maz had 148, Stefan still had 23, Benjamin still had 20, Ryan had 44, Lisa had 46, and Elizabeth McFall had 24. Benjamin was eliminated. On ballot number 5, Danielle had 85, Maz had 150, Stefan had 24, Ryan had 53, Lisa had 50, and Elizabeth McFall had 25. On ballot number 6, Stefan was eliminated. On ballot number 6, Danielle had 86, Maz had 169, Ryan had 54, Lisa had 50, and Elizabeth McFall had 28. Elizabeth McFall was eliminated. And on the 7th and final ballot, Danielle 89, Maz 177, Ryan 60, Lisa 63.
Therefore, the 3 positions will be filled with the following people: Danielle Burt, Lisa Belbeck, and Maz Yazin. Congratulations. Moving on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the approval of the auditor's report. Sorry, we have a point of order. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting. That's actually not in order. It's not a point of order. Pardon me. Right. You have to wait until you're recognized. Okay, so... Order. 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 Auditor's report approval. Be it resolved, the membership accepts the audit. We have our accounting manager here to explain the audit. So please, let's go forward with that. Sorry, actually, we need approval of this motion, pardon me. So, is someone like to approve this motion? Motion by Member McIntosh, seconded by Member Forstner. Take it away.
Thank you. In case some of you don't know who I am, my name is Cheryl Flug. I am the accounting manager for the Federation of Students, and I just wanted to talk briefly, I promise briefly, about our financial statements. So today I'm going to be talking about the 2 main financial statements for our organization. The first is the statement of financial position, as most people would probably know it as the balance sheet. And the second is the statement of operations, which is the income statement. The statement of financial position shows the value of the items we own, the amounts we owe to others, and the net assets, otherwise known as retained earnings for our organization. The statement of operations shows the results of our operations for the year, i.e. whether or not we had a profit or loss. On our statements, as you can see, we have several different fund accounts. The first is the general fund. This is where the fee of $44.80, that's what it was for the years 2012-2013, is allocated to. All of our operations for our commercial services, international news, bomb shelter, Wasabi, campus bubble, and used bookstore, and other services such as the clubs, services, campus life budgets, and governance budgets also flow through here. And all monies are free to be spent as we as a corporation see fit. The dental, health, UPass, SRP, and orientation funds are separated because the student fees collected for these particular funds are restricted. This means that the funds must be spent only on their specific purpose. For example, the health and dental fund money can only be spent on premiums and the cost to administer the funds. So we can't take the money out of those funds and use them to buy goods for international news or bomb shelter. It must be spent on the health fund, the dental fund, and the student refugee project. The new thing this year is the societies fund. In the spring of 2011, the Canada Revenue Agency informed us that we needed to consolidate all of the society's funds and financials into our own, and I'm very excited because we actually achieved that in the year 2012-2013. This fund is the aggregate of all the society's financial information, and because the Federation of Students has no control over the spending in these funds, so they are also restricted. So we cannot dictate to the different societies how their funds are spent. We do show them on our financial statements now. Some of the highlights from this particular statement of financial positions are the biggest one right now is our net worth went up by $2 million this year, which means we now own more assets and own to the tune of $2 million. The next one. Sorry, I'm technologically challenged. If you look at our statement of operations, which is basically our income statement, there are a few things I'd like to highlight here. We had a $34,000 gain on our investments. Last year we had an $88,000 loss. Thirdly, there's again the line for discontinued operations, which is the final windup of Fed Hall and its loss. Fourth, this is especially important and noteworthy to one of the next items on the agenda, which is the $572,000 in revenue under donations and other. These are extraordinary expenses, which means they are expenses or revenues, in this case, that only happen once in a blue moon. They're not part of our normal operations. We do not normally receive this money, and we probably won't receive money for these items ever again. So included in this figure are a Tim Horton settlement, Canada Day settlement, and the SLC settlement and agreement for us taking over the management. And if this revenue was not here, we would end up with a $45,000 loss this year. So we do spend our budget. Lastly, we had an unusually high staff turnover in 2012-2013. We had an open accounts payable position for 4 months. Our service manager left us, and the clubs manager moved into that position, and then the clubs manager position had to be filled. Our special events person left, and that position was open for nearly 3 months. Our IT department hired, then lost, and had to rehire a full-time position. And our marketing manager needed to be replaced, which meant a delay of almost 6 months in hiring the 2 full-time marketing positions that have been budgeted for. And lastly, it took nearly 6 months to fill our bomber management position. So this all results in many of our projects and events that were planned for, budgeted for, not happening, and therefore the funds not being spent. So the last thing I'd like to point out is all of this information will be posted on our website, and you may also be interested in seeing the auditors did a separate audit of each society, and that will be placed on the website as well. So if you want to see, if you're in SciSoc, you may want to see how they did, or MassSoc. They'll all be there, look it over. And if any of you have any questions, you're always free to come and ask me at the front desk, and I would be happy to talk further on any of these points. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you. Okay. So we will now move to discussion on the audit. We have if you'd like to speak in favor of the motion, please line up over here. And if you'd like to speak against the motion, please line up over here. Seeing none, we'll put this to a vote. All those in favor of the auditor's report as presented, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Thank you very much. The auditor's report passes. Okay. So we have ranked voting sorry about that, guys. Ranked voting proposal proposed by Elizabeth McFall. The motion is on the screen. Whereas the Federation of Students currently uses first past the post, in which voters choose a single candidate and the candidates with the most votes are elected. And whereas students have expressed an interest in the ability to rank candidates according to preference, now therefore be it resolved that the Federation of Students will change to instant runoff IRV for single seat elections and BC single transferable vote, or vote BCSTV for multi-seat elections for implementation by the 2014-2015 elections. Be it further resolved, the general meeting confirms the following change to section 12 elections, part C, voting method of the bylaws made by the board of directors. C, voting methods. In all elections, a ranked voting system shall be employed for the counting of ballots. 1, electors shall rank as many candidates as they wish according to preference. 2, electors may choose not to rank a candidate. 3, votes shall only be cast for eligible candidates. 4, votes shall be tallied using instant runoff voting, IRV, for single seat elections, and BC single transferable vote, BCSTV, for multi-seat elections. And 5, if a candidate is disqualified or chooses to withdraw after polling has taken place, any ballot cast for that candidate shall be counted as an abstention. For referendums, votes shall be counted for each referendum option. The option with the most votes shall be considered the outcome. And be it further resolved, the Federation of Students shall provide an explanation of the change in voting system to all students before the 2014-2015 elections, and information shall also be provided at the time of voting. Can I get a seconder for Elizabeth McFall's motion? Motion by, seconded by Member McGuinness. You have 10 minutes to speak and to have questions answered.
Okay, so Sean gave a really good rundown of what ranked voting looks like. You just saw ballots via ranked voting, so I won't re-explain that. Essentially, ranked voting is a more fair choice as opposed to first past the post, where you rank a single candidate and you might like 2 candidates or 3 candidates, or you may be saying, well, I really like this candidate, but they're not going to win, so I'll put my vote somewhere else. The advantage to ranked voting is that you're allowed to rank as many candidates as you like according to preference. So even if there's a candidate who you don't think will win, you can still put them first. Your ballot would still be counted for a later candidate. You end up with a more fair system and a more fair process. And other than that, I guess I can answer any questions anyone has about the difference between the 2 voting systems, or offload them to Sean if I can't answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for Member McFall? We have one question from Member Berlin Jerry. Yes, yes it is. Okay, is there any other questions for Member McFall? Sorry, there's one back there.
Line number 5. I'm just wondering how that works, that if a candidate chooses to no longer run as part of it, why another voter's vote would become an abstention rather than going on to the next candidate.
It should say any vote cast, so that say you voted for Jim first and Bob, and Jim resigned from withdrew from the election, your vote would just go to Bob as number 1. It should say vote cast. Can we make that a friendly amendment?
So there is a motion. Oh, sorry. There's hopeful order. So we're looking at changing, making a slight wording change to the motion. What friendly amendment means is that since it's not very much so changing the nature of the motion, that's why it's called a friendly amendment. So is that friendly? If anybody is opposed, please raise your placards. Are you opposed? Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Member McFall? Thank you. Okay. Well, yes. Right. We're now for the against side, 10 minutes, including questions. Member Birnbaum?
I would like to preemptively speak against the motion to adjourn. I think
that's
we
out of
should
order.
Finish this.
That's out of order. We have on the for side, again, 10 minutes with the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm speaking in favor of this because I think it allows candidates to I think it better reflects the voters' wishes and who they would like to represent them, whether it be council or exec. And I think this is a very good move. It's something I've heard favorably from many students over the years. It's a very simple system. And with that, I would like to call to question.
Okay, so we have a motion to call the question. We've done this before, guys. So let's get a seconder for this. May I please have a seconder? Seconded by, sorry, could you say your name for the record? Member Turner. Thank you. Okay, so I've already explained to you what calling the question means, so we shall put it to a vote. All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your placards. Please lower your placards. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. We are now calling the question. As follows, would any member like me to reread the motion on the screen? Please raise your placard if you'd like me to reread whatever is on the screen. Okay, seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the... Sorry about that. And then all those opposed, please raise your placards. Sorry, all those in favor, please raise your placards. Okay, please lower your placards. All those opposed? This passes unanimously. Item number 7, Fed's fee decrease, proposed by Sasha Forstner. I will read out the motion and we'll move on from there. Whereas the Federation of Students' full-time fee is currently $48.51 per student per academic term, and whereas many departments routinely fail to spend student money efficiently, on average leaving 5 to 7% of budgeted funds unspent, and whereas there are currently no clear spending priorities within the Federation of Students, leading to student money being spent without clear thought as to the value of each dollar, and whereas it is the responsibility of the Board of Directors to determine Fed's strategic priorities in conjunction with the Executive, Students' Council, and Budget Committee, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Federation of Students' full-time membership be reduced by 10% to a value of $43.66 per student per term, effective for all students enrolling in the spring 2014 academic term, and be it further resolved that the full-time membership fee be subjected to no further increases prior to the 2017 March general meeting, with the exception of an annual fee increase of no more than the inflation rate determined by the Canadian Consumer Price Index, which may be applied at the March general meeting in each year except for 2014. We have a mover, Sasha Forstner. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Member Hashman. So Sasha Forstner will have the opportunity to speak to his motion first. The for side will be over here. The against side will be over here. So Member Forstner, may you please speak to your motion? You have 10 minutes, including some questions.
It's my understanding that there's a statement by the Board of Directors on this. Would I be able to allow that to go first?
Yes, you would. This is Member McIntosh. He's the chair of the Federation of Students Board of Directors.
All right, I'd just like to call up the rest of the Board of Directors so then everyone is aware of, who decided on this statement. No, it would technically. So this is the group of directors that on the motion yesterday, not the ones that were elected today. So I will make a statement on behalf of us. The Federation of Students Board of Directors does not support the proposed 10% fee decrease, totaling approximately $250,000, due to the negative impact it will have on the current functional capacity of the organization to meet our members' needs. Feds runs on an operating budget of approximately $2.5 million each year to provide students with 6 services, over 170 student clubs, administration of both the GRT bus pass and the health and dental plan, and the talent to advocate for students' beliefs, such as the defeat of the $25 termly fee for access copyright, which was something done last year, and much more on top of that. A 10% fee decrease would severely impact the organization's ability to provide these services. The proposal cites unspent funds of approximately $150,000 per year. These surpluses were a byproduct of unfilled staffing positions approved in previous general meetings. Oftentimes, hiring staff through the university's HR system takes between 2 to 3 months, and Feds may only begin this process after it has begun to receive funds from students, leading to temporary surpluses. Recently, Feds has expanded to meet the increased need for management of the SLC and the Campus Life Department, which were approved at the March 2013 and March 2012 meetings respectively. And many of these positions were left unfilled were just hired recently. In our previous fiscal year, we had a surplus in our non-commercial budget because of new hires, staff turnover, and salary adjustments, and there was also some other one-time occurrences as well. These overages, while not ideal, are a necessary element of increasing the Federation of Students' staff capacity in order to provide the students with a better overall experience. These overages will be reduced in the coming year as hiring has been completed. However, the surpluses identified only exist in the non-commercial budget, and the organizational budget is currently in a deficit. The Federation of Students still has some commercial services that operate in a deficit, but the organization is actively working towards remedying this. Over the past 30 years, we have seen significant progress towards all commercial services operating at near recovery. To continue this positive trend, we will find efficiencies in all areas of our operations to continue towards a balanced budget. Decreasing the Fed's fee will not lead to improved efficiencies. We are already doing as much as we can to simply maintain a balanced budget. Saying yes to a fee decrease will likely mean saying yes to decreasing the services and operations that students have come to expect.
Thank you, Chair McIntosh. We will move back to Sasha Forstner to finish your points.
Thank you very much, Luke, for that wonderful statement. I think our Board of Directors is doing an excellent job. So, a little bit of background. I'm a student in the Faculty of Math. I'm on the Budget Committee of the Federation of Students, which is where I started working on this proposal. And I seem to have been up here before today. Okay, so currently the Federation of Students fee as it stands is $48.51 as outlined in the motion. It's also a non-refundable fee. That is to say, we don't get to decide individually or collectively whether or not we're going to pay that fee. Now, in June, I joined the Budget Committee with 2 overarching goals. That first goal was transparency, trying to make the budget clearer and more understandable. The second goal was efficiency, trying to make sure that student dollars were going as far as they possibly could in the way that they were spent. Now, I believe Feds is subject to 2 forms of inefficiency right now, only one of which is currently being addressed as in the way that's been outlined in the statement, and that is, of course, budgetary inefficiency, money that you budget to spend and then goes unspent. I did some calculations based on the executive portfolios over the last 7 years. That paperwork's been floating around today. Of course, as the board's statement clearly says, Feds is now fully staffed, and hopefully that inefficiency will be reduced. But that is not why I put forward this proposal. Simply put, I believe Feds is subject to a great deal of spending inefficiency. That is to say, money that is spent in greater quantities than it needs to be. Situations where you spend $1,000 when you could have spent $600 if you'd done a little bit of negotiation and used a little bit of cleverness to take advantage of the resources that you already have and to find better deals for yourself. It is very hard to spot spending inefficiency. It's even harder to solve, but I think there are a couple obvious indications of it in Feds. One is a lack of clear spending priorities anywhere in the Fed's budget. The way that the budget works, the different departments and units within Feds put together their budget, they submit it upwards to the executive, who send it on to the budget committee, who reviews it, approves it, sends it to Students' Council, who sends it to the Board of Directors, it gets approved. It's a whole process. There is a clear lack of spending priorities there. There's also the simple fact that departmental budgets and unit budgets have regularly increased routinely each year by significant amounts. This is simply a way of saying, well, we spent the money we had, how about you give us more money next year? That typically isn't efficient. Now, I have a solution. That is it's two parts. First is reduce the fee by 10% to $43.66. The second is to cap fee increases at the inflation rate for the next 3 years. Here's what I believe will happen if that takes place. The first year, institutional priorities will be set by making cuts based on student need. Now, cuts are difficult, but cuts are a way to set priorities. Cuts are a way to say, here's what we believe is important, and here's how we will address student needs on campus. This will be a year of restraint. That is difficult. The board's statement wasn't wrong in that regard. There is a certain amount of holding back that will be required as a result of making cuts. But it brings us to year 2, where at the level of those who have spending responsibility, at the departmental and the unit level, priorities will be set by starting to ask yourself, how do we get the most out of the money we have? And that is the big shift that really we need to see in the Federation of Students. A shift from saying, what will we spend our money on, to saying, how do we make the most of the money we have? Because that is when money starts to find value. That is when our student dollars start to go as far as they possibly can. And finally, it leads us to year 3, as now finances are being spent efficiently. Organizational spending strategies will shift to reflect student priorities. The Board of Directors will be able to make some interesting strategic decisions in terms of the best ways to spend student money to reflect student needs on this campus. Now, I did some research into this at the time, because the last thing I would want to do is put forward a proposal that would ultimately hurt the Federation of Students, and I very much believe that this is not a significant enough cut that it will affect Fed's ability to operate at a basic level. As a result of a cut this size, Feds will not go into debt, they will not default on a payment, they will not be unable to pay anybody's salary, they will still be able to operate. Now, I am open, this is a general meeting. I am more than happy to hear alternatives and counter arguments and all of the other proposals that this assembly might have today. But from where I stand, Fed's mission is to serve, empower, and represent undergraduate students at Waterloo. Well, I believe that this proposal will allow Feds to serve us more efficiently, empower us more effectively, and more accurately represent our best interests as students. And the best part about it is that it happens by taking $250,000 of student money and putting it back into student pockets. So I encourage you today to stand and support this proposal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member Forstner. Now, we have approximately 3 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock, so are there any questions for Member Forstner? Any questions? Oh, pardon me. One from VP Education Garcia.
So my understanding is that you served as a student at large on our Students' Council Budget Committee this year. So I am really interested in why you feel we do not have any spending priorities when that's actually a task of our Budget Committee that you served on.
Order, order.
I thought that may come up. Thank you for your question, first of all. The fact of the matter is, there's a limit to what. So for those of you who don't know the composition of Budget Committee, it's chaired by the VP Operations and Finance. That's the wonderful Natasha Pozega. There are 3 student counselors Am I getting my number right there? 3, and 1 at-large member. That is myself, Stefan Hamadeh, Charles Kuno, and Kumar Patel. And I'm the at-large member, not being a member of Students' Council myself. There is a limit to the ways in which a committee of 5 people can set priorities for an entire organization. And the fact is, the budget process itself at the moment is backwards. As a committee, we're currently looking into trying to revise and improve this process so that we can actually be given direction as a committee by a combination of Students' Council, the Board of Directors, and general meetings while in the process of making the actual budget. So at the moment, what we're fairly restricted to is whatever priorities are in the budgets that are handed to us, and the best that we can do is try and call out budgeted expense lines that we think don't make sense, or initiatives that we think are probably not in the best interest of students. But ultimately, it's why the budget meeting at Students' Council is as long as it is. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. We have 1 minute and 25 seconds left on the clock. We have a question from Member Hashman.
Just so people can hear me. So I have a question. I mean, you mentioned the dead obvious spending reductions. We paid $1,000 for something we could have, in theory, spent $600 for. Do you have any specific recommendations for where we could make budget cuts right now or in the next few years?
While I have opinions on that particular topic, I'd actually prefer not to put them forward at this meeting. And that's simply because I really do believe that setting those priorities is the role of the Board of Directors and of the Students' Council, and I would prefer not to insinuate that this motion be passed with a requirement that certain areas receive cuts and others not. Because I would like this to be open to our student representatives so that they can make decisions appropriately.
We have 17 seconds left on the clock. Can you just yell it out? 2 seconds.
I'm out of time now.
Sorry. Thank you very much. That was the 10-minute speaking term of the member who moved the motion, Member Forstner. Next, we have Member Singh. Member Singh.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn this meeting. This is a non-debatable motion. However, questions may be asked of Member Singh as to why. Sorry, is there a seconder? We have seconded by Member Khan. This is a non-debatable motion. However, questions may be asked of Member Singh, yet non-repeated questions as to why he would like to see a motion to adjourn. I'm assuming you have questions. Do you have questions on the motion to adjourn? Please nod or shake your, okay. Sorry, please state your name.
Brian Howe. My question is, when is the next general meeting, and is it before when the next fees would be charged?
Thank you very much. Sorry, this is, pardon me. That question is in order. The fee increase itself will actually be brought forward at the February Board of Governors meeting, and our next general meeting is going to be in March, according to our bylaws. Are there any more questions for Member Singh as to why he would like, motion to adjourn? Member Siddhartha.
Considering right now we are discussing about a motion of $250,000 that have problem with $250,000, something that even like board of director are interested in, what's so important that makes you want to adjourn this meeting? Thank you.
Well, as you guys all know, that this is the second biggest attendance of the general meeting, and I feel that this is a very big issue for the students of Waterloo, and I do not believe that since so many people left already, it's not a very good
Order.
objection. It's just really late. People are tired, and they do not want to listen to debates anymore.
Again, this is a point of clarification. So if you have a point of clarification as to why Member Singh would like to adjourn, please ask it. Again, clarification.
I have a three-part question. Part one is I would like to know why specifically you are choosing to adjourn, because you said this is important, but you also tried to adjourn earlier and cut more motions off. My second part is if you want to just leave, so why don't you just leave? And my third part is that this is still a higher attendance than the last two when we increased the fee. So why do you think it's not sufficient to talk about decreasing it?
In the chair's opinion, this is turning into a debate, which is not actually allowed for in Robert's Rules of Order. So we're going to proceed on with the actual motion to adjourn, which is a non-debatable motion. Okay, so all those in favor of adjourning this meeting, please raise your placards high. We'll have scrutineers come count. All those in favor of a motioning to adjourn this meeting, please raise your placards high. Sorry, of adjourning. Thank you, Member Forstner. Please keep your placards up high. All those in favor of motion to adjourn, please keep up your placards. Order. Again, please keep up your placards so they can be counted. Scrutineers, please come up to the front when you have a number. This side of the room can lower their placards. Please keep up here. Okay, please lower your placards. All those opposed to this motion, please raise your placards. Please keep them up high. The scrutineers will count them. I'm sorry, person in the back, you cannot hold 4 votes. Thank you. Please keep your placards up high if you're voting against the motion to adjourn. What's your number? What's your number? Okay, the votes are in. Please lower your placards. The total for the motion to adjourn, for the motion to adjourn is 89. The total for the motion the total for those against motioning to adjourn is 74. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. I really appreciate it. On behalf of the Federation of Students Executive and Leadership, I'd really like to encourage you to stay involved. And once again, thank you very much for